welcome guys! In today's video we are building a house which is inspired by the power of Mother Nature. It's simple, wild, and I think deeply connected to the outdoors. So, I decided to make a small build using only base game and the items we got from the Nature's Calling event. I know that the event ended a few weeks ago, but really, I wanted to squeeze a build out of it because, the items were different from what I usually use, so why skip them? And the idea was actually simple, like what can I do if I limit myself to only the base game plus this event set? And since the event is literally called Nature's Calling, I just felt like creating something inspired by living close to the nature is the perfect idea. The setting is in Copperdale for this house, on the Lazuli Point lot. It's tucked away in the forest, which I think makes it perfect for the kind of story I had in my mind, which is a forest caretaker's cabin. As I wanted this build to feel authentic, I actually gave this lot the off-the-grid challenge. You will see me adding that later in the video. I think it really adds to the vibe of someone living simply, in the balance with nature. And here's something I don't usually do. I went with a diagonal house shape. Normally I just stick to regular rooms, but for a starter home that needed to stay cheap, I think going diagonal actually helps because you get a bit more interior space with just fewer walls, and the shape ends up looking really a little bit more interesting. So the structure is actually very modest, basically just one rectangle with a small front porch. And there is just one floor, one open living space, and a tiny bathroom. And that's it, like super simple. Now, because this is supposed to be a cabin which is hidden in the forest, the main challenge was here to blend it into the environment. And I didn't want it to look like a little starter box, which is randomly placed on this green lot. But instead, I wanted it to feel like the cabin just grew out of the woods. And that meant I had to use lots of debug landscaping. So you will see me layering grass, bushes, lots of flowers and stones, like over and over again. Honestly, I just probably spent half the video doing landscaping. But I think it makes such a big difference, because the whole concept is about living with nature and not cutting it away. For the rocks here, I used a mix, the new ones from Nature's Calling event, for some detailed spots like mailbox, and also debug stones for the bulk of the landscaping, since they are free. And really, debug is what saves my starter builds again and again. Later you will also see that I played with some terrain paint because I wanted to make these natural pathways. In my head, the caretaker just walks back and forth every day, like from his porch to the garden and from the house to the river, so the ground would look warm in those areas. And speaking of the caretaker, I imagined him as a gentle guardian of the forest. He's not just living here, but he's tending to the land. Like he's checking the trails, picking some berries, maybe foraging for wild herbs. That's actually why I added some clusters of grass and wildflower patches. I just wanted it to feel like this was already a living ecosystem, and he just carefully built within it. And actually, one of my favorite little touches in this build is the boat, which is behind the oak tree. Even though Sims can't actually use boats in the base game, I just loved imagining him rowing out every morning to fish. And with Copperdale's River right there, it just fit the story perfectly, I think. And again, the landscaping, you can see that it just took a while, like lots of rotating plants, layering textures, moving stones around. But I think at the end, the cabin really blends very nicely into the surrounding. And since so much of this build is about storytelling, maybe let's talk about the sim who is living here. I think he's a bit of a loner, someone who finds peace in solitude. But also he is very caring and protective of the environment. I picture this caretaker as the type who grows his own vegetables, also fishes for his dinner, and even makes some of his own furniture. And also he is a reader. I used those journals from the event as clutter because I thought it would be really interesting. Like every month, he just gets those little magazines about nature, gardening, maybe fishing tips, and also wildlife updates. So, this is his evening entertainment, like sitting by the fireplace or on the porch and flipping through the latest issue. And I think that during the day he's just doing some caretaker duties, like walking the forest trails, making sure that visitors aren't leaving some trash behind, and also keeping an eye on the river. Maybe he's also repairing some signs or clearing paths. In my head, he's quiet, like steady type, the person whose whole life revolves around making sure that the forest stays healthy. That's actually why for the outdoor setup, I just had to lean into that rustic of the grid lifestyle. So the first thing you might notice is that toilet cabin outside. So yeah, no fancy bathroom here inside the house. It's just, little outdoor toilet which is tucked under a tree and surrounded by lots of grass, flowers, and bushes. And I really think that it makes sense for the type of character he is. It looks very natural and I think practical, and also it adds some quirky detail that feels authentic. Talking about the house, the porch itself has the new woodworking table from the event. Plus, there is also a rustic table and a chair near it. In my story, these are some things that the caretaker just built himself, and that handmade, rough around the edges vibe just carries throughout the build. Because, I just wanted everything to feel really crafted rather than store bought. And inside, the layout is tiny but still functional. So there is no kitchen sink because I figured the bathroom sink would do the job. But you still get the essentials, like a stove, which works off the grid, a small fridge, also a bed. How can we live without it? And even a love seat by the fireplace. And the fireplace is a bit oversized because, base game doesn't have many subtle options, but it really warms up the space during those cold winter nights. Also, I cluttered the interior with lots of different things that I thought just make sense for him, like spices, some storage bags, maybe packages that could be supply deliveries, and of course those journals. Also, there is a blackboard that I imagined he uses for his notes, maybe his daily schedule, or maybe reminders about forest checks. Or he can actually use it as fishing spots like to note fishing spots he wants to revisit. Actually, if I could, I would love to add a little radio for him. You know, something that he could turn on while he's woodworking on the porch, or maybe in the evening while he's cooking. I think it would be his one connection to the outside world, like the way to hear the latest news or just some music. But unfortunately, we don't have this in the base game, so I left it out. And in my story, he just relies on books and journals for entertainment. And maybe he also gets some news when the mail delivery person stops by, or maybe on those rare occasions when he just goes into town. Also, you'll see that I placed on the walls a couple of pictures, and the one that is above the fireplace could actually be his father or maybe grandfather, someone who just also was a first caretaker before him. Or actually, maybe it's a memorial to the first caretaker in this area. I just leave it open to interpretation. I even made a caretaker sim just to test this build. I mean, I pretended he has this type of job because we don't have it in the base game again. Actually, we don't have it in the game at all. But anyway, and it was really fun. You know, he just crafted another chair, went fishing, and even caught a few little fish. And now he just has one in his tiny aquarium inside. And I think this is just perfect for caretaker because now he has a little friend to share his cabin with. And yes, that's it. This is my starter of the grid caretaker's cabin, which I made only with the base game and items from the Nature's Calling event. If you would like to try it in your game, you can just find it on the gallery under my ID, Simsioli. So thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed building this house. So please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and also let me know in the comments if you like playing with off-the-grid households and maybe would you move them into this house. Alright, that's it for now. So see you next time. Bye!